I didn't plan to drink that night. That was the cruel irony of it. The city glittered outside my office windows, all gold and arrogance, like it always did when I stayed too late. Another 14-hour workday, another meeting that went nowhere, another board member pretending my billion-dollar company wasn't mine simply because I was too young, too quiet, too alone. By the time I locked my office, my shoulders ached and my head throbbed. I needed noise, something dull enough to drown my thoughts. That was how I ended up at the Hollow Crown, a bar tucked between glass towers and old money hotels. Dim lights, polished wood, expensive whiskey, no memories attached. At least, none I was aware of then. I slid onto a stool and ordered something strong. Long day, the bartender asked. You have no idea. The glass arrived. Amber liquid. Ice clinked softly. I didn't notice the man at the far end of the bar watching me with familiar eyes. I didn't see the folded cash slip across the counter. I didn't hear the low murmur exchange behind my back. I drank. The first sip burned. The second didn't. By the third, something felt wrong. My vision blurred at the edges. The room tilted, as if the floor had decided it was tired of holding me upright. I reached for the counter, missing it entirely. What the? Strong arms caught me. Easy. A voice murmured near my ear. Too close. Too familiar. You've had too much. I tried to protest. Tried to pull away. My body didn't listen. Darkness swallowed me whole. I woke up to the smell of expensive sheets and a pounding headache that felt like punishment. For a few seconds, I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Something was wrong. Deeply, horribly wrong. My body felt heavy. Used. Every nerve screamed awareness. Then I opened my eyes. Hotel room. Luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Morning light slicing through sheer curtains. And on the armchair by the bed. Him. My ex. Elliot Vaughn. The man I had loved. The man who had cheated on me. The man I had walked away from 5 years ago and sworn never to see again. You're awake, he said calmly, legs crossed, expression unreadable. My heart slammed, so hard I thought it might break my ribs. What are you doing here? My voice came out hoarse. My throat burned. He smiled faintly. You don't remember? Memory hit in fragments. The bar. The drink. His arms. My stomach twisted violently. I pulled the sheets tighter around myself, suddenly aware of every unfamiliar ache, every sour, violated sensation. You drugged me, I whispered. Elliot didn't deny it. I did what I had to. Rage surged through me, sharp and blinding. You're sick. Get out. Now. Instead, he stood and pulled a gun from his jacket. The room went silent. I'm not here to reminisce, he said, setting the weapon on the table where I could see it clearly. I'm here for business. My hand shook. Put that away. Sign first. He dropped a folder onto the bed. I recognized the documents instantly. My company. My life's work. You can't be serious, I said, disbelief cracking my voice. That company is worth billions. I know. His eyes were cold. That's why I want it. Why? I demanded. You already destroyed us. What else do you want from me? For the first time, something dark flickered across his face. Your mother, he said flatly. I was always after her influence. The company was just collateral. My chest tightened. Betrayal cut deeper than fear. You never loved me, I whispered. He didn't answer. The gun clicked as his fingers shifted. Sign. I stared at the papers, and my name printed neatly at the bottom. My hands felt numb as I picked up the pen. This wasn't just theft. This was execution. When I signed, it felt like burying myself alive. Elliot took the documents, satisfied. He made a call. Come get him. Minutes later, strangers entered. They didn't look at me. They dragged me out of the room like discarded trash. As the door closed, Elliot didn't look back. By morning, the city was on fire. Breaking news. Billionaire CEO sells company overnight. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. My best friend, Marcus, called first. Are you insane? He shouted. Do you know what you've done? I didn't sell it, I said quietly. It was stolen. Silence. Then another headline hit. Elliot Vaughn announces engagement to socialite heiress. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I swore revenge. And I had no idea yet that my salvation and my damnation was already watching from the shadows. I didn't go home. Home had memories, walls that still echoed with ambition and certainty. I went somewhere neutral instead, a quiet hotel room Marcus booked under his name, far from cameras and questions. The kind of place where silence pressed against your ears until you were forced to listen to yourself. I sat on the edge of the bed long after midnight, staring at my hands. They didn't feel like mine anymore. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt that helpless fog again, the way my body had betrayed me, the way my trust had been turned into a weapon. Rage simmered beneath the numbness, slow and poisonous. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost. Hello. My voice was flat, exhausted. I was wondering how long it would take before you answered. The voice was calm, male, deep, the kind that didn't need to raise itself to command attention. Who is this? A pause, deliberate. A friend, he said, though that depends on how you answer my next question. I scoffed bitterly. You picked a bad night for games. I know exactly what kind of night this is for you, he replied smoothly. You lost a company worth billions. You were humiliated publicly, and the man who did it is celebrating his engagement. My grip tightened around the phone. How do you know all that? I know many things, he said, including the fact that you didn't sell your company willingly. My heart stuttered. Who are you? I demanded again. Another pause. Then, my name is Adrian Blackwood. The name hit me like a blow. Everyone knew Adrian Blackwood. Billionaire, reclusive, ruthless, untouchable. A man who didn't enter deals. He conquered them. And why? I asked slowly, is someone like you calling someone like me? Because, Adrian said, voice lowering, I hate men who take what doesn't belong to them. Silence stretched between us. I can help you, he continued, but I don't do charity. I laughed, once humorless. Of course you don't. Meet me tomorrow, he said. 8 a.m. Blackwood Tower. And if I say no, you won't, he replied calmly. You want revenge more than you want peace. The line went dead. The next day arrived faster than expected. I couldn't sleep. Even the dead silence in the room felt like mockery to my ears. The clock kept ticking, and before I knew it, I was out and making my way towards the address I was given. Blackwood Tower was all glass and steel, rising into the sky like a challenge. I'd passed 1,000 times. Never entered. Now, I stood in its lobby feeling like prey. Adrian didn't make me wait. The elevator took me straight to the top floor. The doors opened to a vast office drenched in morning light. City skyline, power distilled into architecture. And there he was. Adrian Blackwood stood by the window, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black like the building itself had decided to become human. He turned when he heard me. His gaze pinned me in place. Dark eyes, sharp, assessing. So he said, "You're even more interesting in person." I bristled. "You call me here to admire me?" He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. "Sit." I did. Adrian sat across from me, folding his hands. "I'll be direct." Elliot Vaughn overreached. My jaw tightened at the name. "He thinks because he has your company, he's won," Adrian continued. "He hasn't. He made an enemy he doesn't understand. And that's you." I asked. A faint smile curved his lips. "Among others." "What do you want from me?" He slid a folder across the desk. "A contract." I didn't touch it. "You want my loyalty," I said flatly. "I already have your loyalty," Adrian replied. "You just don't know it yet. What I want is partnership." I raised a brow. "That sounds generous for someone like you." He leaned forward slightly. "You will be publicly ruined for months if you act alone. Lawsuits, smears, media slaughter. I can shield you from all of it. And the price?" Adrian's gaze didn't waver. "You will be mine." The words settled heavy in the air. "Define mine," I said carefully. "Contractual relationship," he replied. "Publicly, you'll be my lover. Privately, you will live with me. You will give me an heir." My breath caught. "That's insane." "Is it?" he asked softly. "You want your company back. You want Vaughn destroyed. I could do both. I shook my head. You don't even know me. I know enough, Adrian said. You're loyal to a fault. You endure pain quietly. And when you love, you do it completely. I looked away. You deserve someone who won't discard you, he continued. And I need someone I can trust not to betray me. I laughed weakly. You're offering protection in exchange for my body and future. I'm offering you power, Adrian corrected. And choice. Sign, and you reclaim everything. Refuse, and Vaughn finishes what he started. I stared at the contract, at the clause that made my heart race. Reproductive agreement. Emotional exclusivity. Mutual benefit. You'd really help me take him down? I asked quietly. Adrian stood, walked around the desk, and stopped in front of me. He lifted my chin gently, not possessive but firm. I would ruin him, he said. Slowly, something dangerous flickered in my chest. And afterward, I whispered. Afterward, Adrian said, his thumb brushing my jaw, we'll see whether this contract becomes something real. The touch sent an unexpected shiver through me. I signed. That night, I moved into Blackwood Tower. Adrian's penthouse was cold elegance, marble, steel glass. He showed me to a bedroom that overlooked the city. You're safe here, he said. I hesitated. About the contract. Adrian stepped closer. This doesn't begin with force, he said quietly. It begins with consent. His hand cupped my cheek. Our first kiss was slow, deliberate, a promise rather than a claim. And for the first time since everything shattered, I slept without fear, unaware that love, real love, was already threading itself through the lies. Living with Adrian Blackwood felt like stepping into another universe, one where silence carried weight and every detail was intentional. The first morning in his penthouse, I woke before dawn, disoriented by the height, the glass walls, the way the city sprawled beneath me like something I could crush if I chose to. For years, I'd been a man on magazine covers, the prodigy CEO. Now I was a kept secret, a contract-bound lover. I found Adrian in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, pouring coffee as though he were an ordinary man and not a billionaire feared by entire industries. You're up early, he said without looking at me. I didn't really sleep, I admitted. He glanced over then, eyes sharp but not unkind. Nightmares? I hesitated. Memories? Adrian nodded, as if he understood far more than I'd said. He slid a cup toward me. Today will be unpleasant. That got my attention. Because Elliot Vaughn is going to realize he didn't win. The first strike came before noon. I sat beside Adrian in the private conference room as his legal team projected files across a massive screen. Shell companies, hidden debts, illicit mergers. Every dirty move Elliot had ever made laid bare like a corpse on a steel table. How did you get all this? I asked quietly. Adrian didn't look at me. I've been watching Vaughn for years. He's careless when he thinks he's untouchable. And you waited until now. Yes, Adrian said simply. Because now he's emotionally compromised. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. What did you do? Elliot screamed. I closed my eyes briefly, then smiled. You should be careful, I said softly. People might start asking how you acquired my company overnight. You think Blackwood will save you? Elliot snarled. You're just his toy. I looked at Adrian. He met my gaze, unbothered. Funny, I replied. Because toys are replaceable. I'm not. The call ended. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From exhilaration. That evening, Adrian hosted a private charity gala. It was my first public appearance at his side. Cameras flashed as we entered, his hand resting firmly in my lower back. Possessive, protective, real enough to convince anyone watching. Whispers followed us. That's him. The disgraced CEO? No, Blackwood's lover. I should have hated it. Instead, I felt safe. A woman approached Adrian, smile sharp as a blade. Adrian, you didn't tell me you'd settled down. I didn't, he replied coolly. I chose. His grip on me tightened slightly. Later, on the balcony overlooking the city, I confronted him. You enjoy this, I said. Marking territory. He studied me. Does it bother you? I thought about Elliot, about being powerless, about how Adrian's presence turned whispers into shields. No, I admitted, it doesn't. His gaze softened. That wasn't part of the contract, he said quietly. What? This, he gestured between us. You leaning into me, trusting me. I swallowed. I don't know when it happened. Neither do I, Adrian murmured. He leaned in, not demanding, not rushed. Our lips met in a slow, searching kiss that left me breathless. It wasn't hunger. It was recognition. The backlash came the next day. Elliot held a press conference, parading his fiancée like armor. Accusations flew, lies wrapped in charm. Then Adrian responded, with evidence. Within hours, Vaughn Industries was under investigation. Banks froze accounts. Board members resigned. Marcus called me, voice shaking with laughter. You did it. You actually did it. We're not done yet, I said. Neither was Elliot. That night, Adrian found me pacing the penthouse. He's dangerous when cornered, I said. I know him. Adrian stepped close. So am I. He cupped my face, pressing his forehead to mine. You're not alone anymore. For the first time since everything broke, I believed it. And for the first time, I wondered, what happens when revenge ends and feelings don't? Elliot didn't disappear quietly. Men like him never did. The first sign came as a ripple, subtle enough that anyone else might have missed it. A supplier I'd worked with for years suddenly pulled out a joint venture. A former ally gave an interview implying I'd been unstable long before the sale. Old rumors, manufactured, ugly, began crawling back into the spotlight. I watched it all unfold from Adrian's penthouse, jaw clenched, fingers digging into the leather armrest. He's trying to rewrite history, I said. Yes, Adrian replied calmly. And he's doing it because he's afraid. Afraid of you? Adrian finally looked at me. Afraid of losing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wandered into the living room, city lights bleeding through the glass walls. Adrian was already there, jacket off, sleeves rolled up again, staring at something on his tablet. You're still working, I said. You're still awake, he countered. I sat beside him, close enough to feel his warmth. Elliot knows me, I said quietly. He knows how to hurt me without touching me. Adrian's jaw tightened. He won't get the chance. You can't control everything. He turned to face me fully. I can control what happens to you. The intensity of his gaze made my breath hitch. That's not part of the contract, I said softly. No, Adrian agreed. It isn't. Silence stretched between us, heavy and charged. Then, without warning, the alarms went off. Not loud, silent alerts. Adrian was on his feet instantly. Stay here, he ordered, already pulling his phone out. I stood anyway. What's happening? Someone breached the lower levels, he said grimly. Security is handling it. My heart raced. Elliot, I don't know, Adrian said, but I intend to find out. Minutes later, confirmation arrived. It was Elliot. Not physically. He wasn't foolish enough for that. But he'd sent a message, loud and unmistakable. A photo appeared on Adrian's screen. My mother, leaving her building, unaware, unprotected. I felt the blood drain from my face. He promised. My voice broke. He said he was only after her influence. He swore he wouldn't hurt her. Adrian's expression hardened into something lethal. He lied. Adrian was already issuing orders, voice cold, efficient. Within minutes, his entire security network mobilized. Private guards, surveillance teams, people who didn't ask questions. I paced like a caged animal. This is my fault, I said hoarsely. I drag you into this. Adrian turned sharply. No. Elliot chose this the moment he touched you. The words landed harder than I expected. Touched you. Not used. Not took advantage. Touched. As if that alone was unforgivable. Hours later, confirmation came. My mother was safe. Relocated. Guarded. I sagged against the wall, relief crashing through me so hard my knees nearly gave out. Adrian was suddenly there, hands gripping my shoulders. "You okay?" he asked quietly. I laughed weakly. I don't know how to answer that. He pulled me into his chest. This time, I didn't hesitate. I clutched his shirt, breathing him in, grounding myself in the solid reality of him. His hand slid up my back, slow and steady, not claiming, anchoring. "I won't let him take anything else from you," Adrian said into my hair. I tilted my head up. Our faces were inches apart. "This isn't just business anymore, is it?" I asked. "No," he admitted. "It stopped being business the moment I saw what he did to you." My pulse thundered. "Then what is it?" I whispered. Adrian didn't answer with words. He kissed me. Not the careful, testing kiss from before, but something deeper, slower, like he was asking permission with every breath. I answered by kissing him back. The world narrowed to warmth and closeness and a quiet realization that I wanted this. Not because of contract, not because of revenge, because he made me feel whole again. Later, tangled in sheets, the city glowing around us, Adrian rested his forehead against mine. "This doesn't change the terms," he said quietly. "You can still walk away after this is over." I traced the line of his jaw. "Do you want me to?" He didn't answer immediately. "No," he said finally, "but I won't cage you." Something inside me softened painfully. The next morning, Elliot made his boldest move yet. He leaked footage, edited, twisted, a narrative of me as unstable, manipulated, a pawn. But this time, Adrian didn't counter with lawyers. He countered with truth, evidence of coercion, proof of threats, financial trails leading straight back to Elliot's crimes. The city watched in real time as Elliot Vaughn began to fall, and I watched beside Adrian, realizing that the man who'd started as my shield was becoming something far more dangerous to my heart. The claws had been there all along. I just hadn't seen it. It was 3 days after Elliot's public image began to rot that Adrian's legal team requested a private meeting. No assistants, no observers, no security hovering by the doors. Just Adrian, me, and a single tablet laid flat on the conference table. The air felt heavier than usual. "Why do I feel like I'm about to hate this?" I asked, attempting levity. Adrian didn't smile. "That depends," he said carefully, "on whether you still trust me." That answer sent a chill through me. The lawyer, an older woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing, cleared her throat. "Mr. Blackwood, the media pressure is accelerating faster than anticipated. Vaughn's counterattack has triggered a jurisdictional review." I frowned. "In plain language, they're going to try to paint Adrian as the mastermind who exploited your vulnerability," she said. "And they'll go after the contract." Adrian's jaw tightened. "They won't win." "They might," she replied calmly, "unless the relationship is no longer contractual." Silence dropped like a blade. I slowly looked at Adrian. "What does that mean?" The lawyer turned the tablet toward me and highlighted a section I'd skimmed but never fully processed. Clause 17. Conversion provision that in the event that emotional exclusivity is mutually affirmed outside contractual obligation, all terms transition from binding agreement to voluntary union, nullifying claims of coercion. My breath caught. "You wrote an escape hatch into your own contract," I said softly. Adrian met my gaze. "I wrote you one." The lawyer continued. "If you publicly affirm that you are with Mr. Blackwood by choice, not obligation, the contract becomes legally irrelevant. Vaughn loses his strongest argument." My heart pounded. "And what's the catch?" I asked. "There is none," Adrian said, "except that it has to be true." The lawyer left us alone. The door closed with a quiet finality. I stood abruptly, pacing. "You planned this." "I prepared for it," Adrian corrected. "From the moment I realized I didn't want you bound to me by paper." "That's not fair," I said, turning to him. You don't get to make me the deciding factor in your empire. Adrian stood too, closing the distance between us. You already are. I laughed, sharp and shaky. You're asking me to go on record and say I chose you, knowing what people will say, that I traded one powerful man for another. I know, he said quietly, and if you say no, I'll handle it another way. Another way meant bloodless warfare, corporate annihilation, years of damage control. Another way meant safety, but not freedom. I stopped pacing. Elliot never asked, I said slowly. He took. Adrian didn't interrupt. You didn't, I continued. You offered, even when you didn't have to. He searched my face. Is that your answer? I exhaled. No, I said. This is. The press conference was scheduled within hours. I stood backstage, mic clipped to my jacket, lights bleeding through the curtains. My hands trembled despite my best efforts. You don't have to do this, Adrian said softly beside me. I looked up at him. Really looked. This man had dismantled an empire for me, shielded my family, given me control back piece by piece, and then offered to let me walk away. I know, I said. That's why I am. We stepped out together. Cameras exploded. Questions flew like bullets. Did Blackwood coerce you? Was the contract real? Are you a victim? I took the mic before Adrian could speak. I wasn't coerced, I said clearly. I was protected. The room went silent. I entered an agreement when I was vulnerable. I continued. But what exists now isn't a contract. It's a choice. Adrian turned to look at me, surprise flickering across his controlled expression. I choose him, I said. Publicly, privately, completely. The fallout was immediate. Legal analysts shifted narratives in real time. Social media erupted. Vaughn's case collapsed under the weight of truth and timing. But I didn't see any of that. All I saw was Adrian. That night, in the quiet of the penthouse, the city far below, Adrian held my face in his hands. You just tied yourself to me, he said softly. I smiled faintly. You gave me the key. He kissed me then, slow, reverent like a vow. For the first time, there was no contract between us. Only trust. Only choice. Elliot was arrested 2 days later. Fraud, coercion, blackmail. Evidence piled higher than his arrogance. I watched the news without satisfaction. Only relief. But the story wasn't over yet. Because taking down a man was one thing. Reclaiming a legacy was another. And the final battle, my company, was still ahead. The courtroom smelled like polished wood and quiet ambition. I sat beside Adrian at the defendant's table, not as a prop, not as a shield, but as myself, the man who had built a company from nothing, the man who had lost it overnight, the man who had come back with teeth. Across the aisle, Elliot Vaughn looked smaller than I remembered. Not weaker, just diminished. His tailored suit couldn't hide the tremor in his knee, the way his gaze flicked toward exits that no longer belonged to him. I should have felt triumph. Instead, I felt tired. This hearing concerns the unlawful transfer of corporate ownership under coercion, the judge intoned. Proceed. The evidence was devastating. Bank records, signed threats, recorded calls, the gun recovered from the hotel room, fingerprints intact. My testimony came last. I stood, every eye in the room fixed on me. When I signed those documents, I said evenly, I was under threat of immediate harm, not just to myself, but to my family. I did not consent. I survived. Elliot laughed then. A brittle, cracked sound. You survived because you were always good at letting other men fight your battles, he sneered. Adrian shifted beside me, but I raised a hand. No, I said calmly. I survived because I learned when to ask for help. Something you never understood. The judge ruled swiftly. The transfer was void. My company, was returned to me by law before noon. The room erupted. I sat down slowly, hands shaking. Adrian leaned close. It's over, he murmured. I believed him. I shouldn't have. The secret came that night. We were back in a penthouse, the city glowing like a promise kept. Adrian poured me a drink, water this time, and watched me with an intensity that made my chest ache. "You're quiet," he said. "I'm processing," I replied. "I thought I'd feel victorious." "And you don't." I shook my head. "I feel like something's missing." Adrian set his glass down carefully. Too carefully. "There is," he said. My pulse quickened. "What?" He gestured toward the sofa. "Sit." I obeyed, a knot forming in my stomach. "I didn't tell you everything about Elliot," Adrian said. "Or about your company." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He took a breath. For the first time since I'd met him, Adrian Blackwood hesitated. "Elliot wasn't the first man to try to take your company," he said quietly. Cold crept up my spine. "Years ago," Adrian continued, "there was an acquisition attempt. Hostile. Silent. It failed." I stared at him. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because," he said, meeting my eyes, "I was behind it." The room tilted. "You what?" "I didn't know you then," Adrian said quickly. "I knew the numbers. The innovation. I wanted the company because it was brilliant." My breath came shallow. "You tried to take it from me." "I failed," he said. "And when I learned who you were, what you'd built," I stopped. I stood abruptly. "So this was never coincidence." "No," he admitted. "But what came after was." I laughed, sharp, incredulous. "So I went from one man trying to steal my life to another." Adrian rose too, crossing the space between us. "I didn't touch you. I didn't threaten you. And when I realized you mattered to me, I protected what was yours." "You should have told me," I said, voice shaking. "I know." Silence pressed in, heavy and merciless. "Did you ever plan to?" I asked. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "After the company was back in your hands. After you were safe enough to walk away if you wanted." My chest tightened painfully. "You don't get credit for almost doing the right thing," I said. "I'm not asking for credit," Adrian replied. "I'm asking for the chance to make it right." I turned away, staring out at the city. "I trusted you," I whispered. "And I trust you enough to tell you now," he said. "Even if it costs me everything." That was the moment I realized something terrifying. He was afraid, not of losing money, not of losing power, of losing me. Elliot's final move came the next morning. From prison, a leaked document surfaced, dated years ago. A will, my mother's signature, a clause that would transfer her controlling shares to Elliot. Forgery, but convincing forgery. The market panicked. My company's stock plummeted. I stood in my office, the one I'd reclaimed, staring at the chaos unfolding on the screens. "He still tried to burn it down," I said. Adrian stepped up beside me. Then we stopped playing defense. "Ow, we go public with everything," he said, "including me." I looked at him sharply. "That will destroy your reputation." He met my gaze steadily. "If the truth cost me power, so be it." I searched his face. This man had once been my enemy, then my shield, then my lover. Now he was offering to fall with me if it meant I wouldn't fall alone. "Okay," I said quietly. Adrian exhaled slowly. We walked into the storm together, unaware that one final twist, one that would change our future forever, was already waiting in the dark. The truth detonated like a controlled explosion. Adrian didn't soften it. He didn't spin it. He stood beside me in front of cameras, analysts, shareholders, enemies, and told everything. About the failed acquisition years ago, about the contract, about Elliot's coercion, about choosing transparency over power. "I won't pretend I've always been ethical," Adrian said calmly into the mic, "but I will not profit from another man's suffering. Not now. Not ever." The fallout was immediate. Blackwood Group stock dipped. Partners hesitated. Headlines turned sharp. "Billionaire admits past predatory tactics, power, couple, or calculated cover." I watched it all unfold from the quiet of his private office, heart lodged painfully in my throat. "You didn't have to do that," I told him later. "Yes," Adrian replied simply. "I did. For me. For us." Something shifted inside me then. Not love. I already felt that terrifying and real, but certainty. The kind that doesn't ask questions anymore. The boardroom meeting that followed was brutal. Adrian faced his directors alone. He asked me to stay out of it. I didn't. I sat in the back, silent, watching men and women who had once feared him attempt to strip him down to numbers and optics. "You've become a liability," one of them said coolly. Adrian folded his hands. "Then remove me." Silence. They hadn't expected that. "You'd walk away?" another asked. "Yes," Adrian said without blinking. "If staying cost me the man I love." My breath caught. The vote passed narrowly. Adrian retained control, but at a cost. He stepped down from day-to-day leadership, appointing an interim CEO. When we left the room, he looked lighter. "Are you okay?" I asked quietly. He smiled faintly. "For the first time in years, I feel honest." The collapse finally came for Elliot a week later. Charges expanded. The forge will unraveled under scrutiny. His fiancée vanished from the picture as quickly as she'd entered it. I didn't visit him. I didn't need to. Revenge had burned itself out, leaving behind something quieter, something heavier, healing, or so I thought. The dizziness started on a Tuesday. I brushed it off at first, stress, exhaustion, adrenaline withdrawal. But when I nearly fainted during a board call, Adrian insisted. "Doctor," he said, already reaching for his coat. "Now." I roll my eyes. "You're overreacting." "I don't overreact," he replied. "I anticipate." The clinic was discreet. Private. Silent. The doctor returned with results far too quickly. She smiled gently. "Well," she said, "this explains a lot." I frowned. "Explains what?" "You're pregnant." The room went still. I laughed once, sharp, disbelieving. "That's not possible." The doctor tilted her head. "It very much is." I turned to Adrian. His face had gone pale. "Say something," I whispered. He swallowed hard. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "Early stages. Very healthy." The words echoed in my skull. "Pregnant. A child. His child." My hands trembled as reality rushed in. "This wasn't part of the plan," I said faintly. Adrian took my hands carefully, like I might shatter. "We'll do whatever you want." I searched his eyes. No calculation. No control. Only fear. And hope. "I don't want to be trapped again," I said quietly. "You're not," he said immediately. "This isn't a contract. This is your choice." I exhaled shakily. Then I surprised myself. "I'm not afraid," I said. He blinked. "You're not." "I am," I corrected softly. "But not of this." Adrian pulled me into his arms, holding me like something sacred. For the first time, the future didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like a promise. That night, we stood on the balcony together, city lights shimmering below. I never wanted revenge to be my ending, I admitted. "It isn't," Adrian said. "It was your beginning." I rested my head against his shoulder. Somewhere behind us, the past finally went quiet. I should have known peace wouldn't last. It never does when a man like Elliot Vaughn is involved. The call came just after midnight. Private number. Prison line. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. "Hello." He laughed. It was weaker than before, strained, but still unmistakably Elliot. "Congratulations," he said. "I hear you're going to be a parent." My blood ran cold. "How do you know that?" I demanded. "Power doesn't vanish just because the bar's close in," he replied lazily. "People talk. Nurses, lawyers, guards with gambling debts." Adrian was instantly awake beside me, his expression sharpening when he saw my face. "You don't get to speak about my child," I said, every word trembling with restrained fury. "Your child," Elliot scoffed. "Or Blackwood's insurance policy?" "That did it." "You lost," I said flatly. "Everything. This is all you have left, your voice. Use it wisely." "Oh, I intend to," he said softly. "Because if I can't own what you love, I can still destroy it." The line went dead. I sat frozen. Adrian took the phone from my hand, already issuing orders, his voice cold enough to cut steel. Within minutes, security was doubled. Routes changed, names scrubbed from registries. But fear had already taken root in my chest. He knows, I whispered. He knows about the baby. Adrian knelt in front of me, gripping my hands. He won't touch you. Or the child. I swear it. I've heard promises before, I said shakily. His jaw tightened, not in anger but resolve. Then I'll make this one irreversible. The next day, Adrian did something that shocked the city. He withdrew every remaining charge that could be leveraged quietly. And instead, he went public. A full deposition. Names. Dates. Evidence. Every dirty secret Elliot had buried, including crimes tied to organized networks far more dangerous than corporate rivals. Marcus called me in a panic. Do you know what Blackwood just did? Yes, I said softly. He signed Vaughn's death warrant. Adrian didn't deny it when I confronted him. He threatened our child, Adrian said calmly. There are lines. You expose yourself, I said. Those people won't forgive you. They don't need to, he replied. They just need to fear consequences. I stared at him. You changed. No, Adrian said gently. I remembered who I was supposed to be. Elliot demanded to see me 2 days later. I almost refused, but something inside me needed closure. The prison visiting room was colder than I expected. Elliot looked worse, thinner, eyes sunken, arrogance rotting into desperation. He smiled when he saw me. You look different. I am, I replied. You always wanted to be protected, he said. Funny how you found someone worse than me. I leaned forward. You drugged me. You threatened my life. You tried to steal my future. He laughed bitterly. And yet, I'm the one in chains. You're here because you crossed a line, I said. And you don't get redemption arcs. His smile vanished. You think Blackwood loves you? He snarled. Men like him don't love. They collect. I stood. This is the last time you'll ever speak my name, I said quietly. The last time you'll think you matter to me. I turned and walked away. He screamed after me. It didn't follow. That night, I broke down for the first time since everything began. Adrian held me as I cried. Ugly, shaking sobs that emptied something poisoned from my chest. I'm scared, I admitted. Not of him. Of losing this. You won't, Adrian said firmly. I'll burn the world first. I pulled back, meeting his eyes. I don't want you to. He softened. Then I'll protect it quietly. I rested my forehead against his. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was survival. And love. Outside, the city slept, unaware that one empire had already fallen and another was being rebuilt not on power, but on devotion. Power feels different when you've lost it once. When I walked back into my company's headquarters, it wasn't with the reckless confidence of a prodigy CEO anymore. It was with something sharper, quieter, earned. People stood when I entered the boardroom, not out of obligation, out of respect. I took my seat at the head of the table, the same chair Elliot had once occupied in smug victory, and folded my hands. Let's begin, I said. No tremor, no hesitation. The company stabilized faster than anyone expected. Markets responded to transparency. Investors returned cautiously at first, then decisively. My decisions were precise, ruthless when necessary, compassionate when it mattered. The press stopped calling me the disgraced CEO. They started calling me the survivor. Adrian watched it all from a careful distance, never once interfering unless I asked. He had stepped back from his own empire more than he ever admitted publicly, choosing influence over visibility, choosing us. One evening, as I reviewed contracts in his study, he leaned against the doorframe, watching me with an expression that made my chest tighten. What? I asked. You're terrifying now, he said fondly. I snorted. I learned from the best. No, he corrected. You learned from pain. Elliot's influence finally died a slow, public death. Every appeal denied. Every ally flipped. Every secret exposed. He became a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms and law schools. I didn't celebrate. I simply let go. The nightmare stopped soon after. The pregnancy changed everything in ways I hadn't expected. Not just physically, but emotionally. I was careful now, thoughtful, protective in a way that felt ancient and instinctive. Adrian hovered more than he meant to. "You're staring," I told him one night. "I'm memorizing," he replied quietly. I studied him. The man who once ruled by fear now moved like someone who understood fragility. "You're scared," I said. "Yes," he admitted without shame, "of asking for too much." I closed the distance between us, resting my hand over his heart. "Then ask anyway." He inhaled slowly. "Stay," he said. "Not because of the child. Not because of what we survived. Stay because you want to." I smiled softly. "I already am." But I could tell that wasn't the question he was really afraid to ask. The gala was meant to be routine, a celebration of recovery, of futures reclaimed. The city's elite gathered beneath chandeliers and ambition. Adrian stood beside me, impeccable as always. Then, unexpectedly, he stepped away. The music softened. Attention shifted. He took the stage. My heart stuttered. "This isn't scripted," Adrian said into the mic, voice steady but eyes locked on mine. "And it's the most terrifying negotiation of my life." Murmurs rippled through the room. "I've spent my life believing love was leverage," he continued. "Something to control or avoid. I was wrong." He stepped down from a stage and walked toward me. Every step felt like thunder. "I won't cage you," he said quietly. "I won't bind you with contracts or fear. I won't promise perfection." He took my hands. "But I will choose you. Every day, if you'll let me." The room held its breath. "Will you marry me?" For a moment, the past flickered betrayal, pain, loss. Then the present anchored me. Trust, growth, devotion. And the future waited. "Yes," I said. Applause erupted. Adrian exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. Later, alone in the quiet of the penthouse, I rested against him, hand on my stomach, feeling something small and fierce shift beneath my palm. "You know," I murmured, "this started with me walking into a bar." He kissed my temple, "And ended with you owning the world." I smiled. "No, I own myself." The wedding wasn't small, but it wasn't a spectacle either. Adrian wanted privacy. I wanted meaning. So we met in the middle, an old estate outside the city, stone and glass entwined, guarded but open to the sky. No press, no shareholders, only the people who had earned a right to witness us. I stood at the window of the preparation room, hands resting over the gentle curve of my stomach, watching guests arrive along the gravel drive. For the first time in a very long while, my heart wasn't racing from fear or anger. It was steady. "You ready?" Marcus asked from behind me, straightening his tie for the third time. I smiled. "I think I've survived worse." He snorted. That's one way to describe it. When the doors opened and I stepped into the light, the world seemed to narrow to one man standing at the altar. Adrian. He wasn't smiling the way billionaires smiled for cameras. This was softer, real. His eyes were too bright, like he was barely holding something together. When I reached him, he took my hands, and I felt the faint tremor he couldn't hide. "You okay?" I whispered. "Terrified," he replied honestly. "But I've never been more certain of anything." The vows weren't long. It didn't need to be. "I choose you," Adrian said clearly, voice carrying across the estate. "Not as possession, not as protection, but as my equal, my home." My throat tightened. "I choose you," I said in return. "Not because you saved me, but because you saw me, even when I didn't." When we kissed, it wasn't fireworks. It was grounding, like coming back to myself. Life after the wedding was quieter than the world expected. There were no dramatic headlines, no scandals, no public unraveling. Instead, there were mornings in sunlight, Adrian reading reports while I drank tea and felt the baby shift. There were late-night conversations about nothing and everything. There was laughter, real laughter, that felt almost unfamiliar at first. The birth came during a storm. Rain battered the city, thunder rolling low and insistent. Adrian never left my side, his grip on my hand unyielding, voice steady even when fear flickered through his eyes. When the baby finally cried, strong, defiant, I broke down. Adrian did too. We named him Lucas. Not after power, not after legacy, but after light. Months later, I stood in my office again, holding Lucas in one arm while signing a final document with the other. The company was stronger than it had ever been. So was I. Adrian leaned in the doorway, watching us, a soft smile on his face. "What?" I asked. "You won," he said quietly. I shook my head. "No, I survived, and then I chose better." That night, after Lucas was asleep and the city hummed far below, Adrian wrapped his arms around me on the balcony. "You ever think about how this started?" he asked. "The bar," I said dryly. "I'd rather not." He laughed softly. "Fair." I turned in his arms. "You know what scares me now?" He shook his head. "That I could have stayed broken," I said. "That I could have believed what Elliot did to find me." Adrian kissed my forehead. "But you didn't." "No," I said, "because I learned something." "What?" "That love isn't a contract. It's a choice you make every day, especially after the worst has already happened." Below us, the city lights burned on, indifferent, endless. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to conquer it. I had everything I needed right here.